This is a quick tip about an already useful feature that, thanks to some recently added functionality, is even more broadly useful. Since the functionality may not be immediately obvious, it seemed worth taking a couple of minutes to walk through it. And what we're talking about is the references to it functionality, which, if you are already familiar with it, you can highlight a class name and find all references to the class name in the image. And that's a great feature. And you can do the same thing for a variable and find all the references to that variable. Again, very useful. And it does more than just find it in the current class. It'll actually search the class hierarchy. And so you'll see any number of classes that are referencing it. So again, that's very useful functionality, but it is only useful, at least prior to about 4044, in those couple of cases. And of course, you can do the same thing in a workspace window, and that's great. But there's another use case, somewhat related, that could be made better. Historically, if you want to find, say, the number 1, you have to do a string search, basically, and this will get you back, in the case of the number 1, 3,700 methods. Not terribly useful. Well, now we can do references to it, and we will find all of the references to the literal number 1 as opposed to the string. And so now we're down to 38 references, much more manageable. And you can also do it on characters, but you can also do it on any arbitrary expression. So this will get us back not the string 113 minus 1, but 112. And if we go down here, yeah, you can see that 112 is expressed in base 16. Cool. You can also go the other way, and you can express it in base 16 and get back to 112. And you can search on a literal string. Now, granted, in this case, you'd find that with the string search pretty easily, but it's just to give you an example. Any literal works, including selectors. But really, where this starts to show its utility is thanks to the backtick feature that we've had in Cuis for quite some time now. You can turn any arbitrary Smalltalk expression into a literal. And one of the cases where this has gotten to be somewhat of a pain using string search is in the 0 ampersand or 0 at 0 point. Because you do references to it, and there are 105 references. But if you start going through those references, you'll find some of them have the 0 at 0 with no spaces. Some have 0 space at space 0. Some have just the space before the at, and some have it after. So again, being able to go in and search for a literal value as opposed to a string value can be very handy in cases like this, where you've got a number of different ways, either due to typos or stylistic preference. You like to type things differently than someone else. Just search on the literal value, and there you go. And of course, because this is built into the code editor, it doesn't just work in the workspace. I was just using that for this demo. You can highlight any arbitrary code in any code editor and do references to it, and again, there you go. So hope you find this useful.